Hello, everybody. This is Board Game Chats. I'm Myron.
And I'm Chris. Hello, Myron. How are you today?
Good, dude. Good, dude.
Yeah.
I'm feeling really comfortable, particularly because it's not burning outside anymore. So yeah, it's good this morning.
Yeah, the weather has been pretty nice here. It's been that sort of end of summer, start of fall, cool breezes, but nice days for going for a walk or sitting out by the water. It's been fun.
Yeah, Anna's been taking me for walks like 2 to 4 times per day. It's been great.
I love that you say that Anna's been taking you for a walk. Like, I picture you with like the whole collar and the leash, and you walk ahead and wiggle your bum as you go along. It's like, that's how my dog goes for a walk.
It's not far from that. Like I was gonna say, Chris, it's not far from that. The funny thing is, I just realized that I have autism and ADHD, and I'm unmasking, and walking around unmasked at 45 without having the dexterity that I had at 18 when I used to walk around like that is actually very treacherous. I bump into a lot of things. Like, you slow down. Like, you don't have the dexterity. Just be like, oh, oops, but like catch yourself. So I'm just like, blah. Like, I'm like wearing like my bib during the day so I don't break my tech bro hoodies, but just like spilling stuff. But yeah, it's hilarious though.
I love that, Ted. Unmasking. We've got to talk about that at some point. I love that phrase, though. That's an interesting phrase and an important one. But I do want to get the show started. Today we have a really interesting guest with I'd say an unusual background that has journeyed into gaming, and we want to introduce him. His name is Chris Kingsnorth. And he's from the land of Robin Hood, and I hear it's also the land of Games Workshop in Nottingham, UK, in the UK. Welcome, Chris.
Hello. Hi. Thanks very much for having me. Yes, land of Robin Hood, everyone knows that, and Games Workshop. So if you've ever played any Warhammer stuff, it's probably originated from Nottingham at some point.
And is that where the company started, or?
It is, yeah, still where their main headquarters is, I think. The reason I know that is there's a huge Warhammer world near us, and it has an 8-foot Space Marine statue outside. So that's how you know you're there. Yeah,
I've seen pictures of it. I didn't know that was actually in Nottingham. There we go.
It is, yeah, not too far from my house.
Now, is it a Grey Wolf or Ultramarine or?
I don't know. I'm going to say it's probably an Ultramarine because I feel like that's one that, most people would know when they go, but that is unsubstantiated information, and I will have to go and check now.
Well, you know what would be awesome? Like, if it was like in the future, like if you go there, like eventually, and there's like a Sisters of Battle there.
Yeah,
like that would be awesome.
Yeah, that would be. Well, if I go, I'll take a selfie and send it to you, and you'll know what type of Marine it is then.
Definitely. I'm going to add that to my list. When I eventually go visit my cousin who lives in England, I'm not sure how far away Nottingham is from where she lives, but that sounds like a must do. Yeah. Well, why don't we start and you tell us about yourself, because I think you have a really interesting journey, one that I've heard a lot of different people's journeys and how they got into board games and started working in board games, but I not heard one quite like yours. So I'd like to hear more. Tell us about yourself.
So, yeah, thanks. My name's Chris Kingsnorth. I am a game developer currently. I co-host a podcast. I also organise the UK Protospiel, one that happens in Nottingham. Wow. And yeah, I've come into games as a job through an unusual route, in that I started my professional career, going through medical school and then being a pediatrician. So until 6 months ago, I was a pediatric doctor, pretty close to becoming a consultant. And then I decided it was time for a change. So yeah, a bit of an unusual way in, I think.
One of the things that you mentioned earlier, or actually Chris mentioned earlier, Chris K, is the idea that you have, like, your path into games was not typical. And what I wanted to say is like, that part is not typical, but the people transitioning from the healing trades out is not untypical.
I agree.
Because you said it yourself. You're like, I was
Right.
about to become a consultant. I was gonna.
Yeah, it's a tricky. It's interesting. I think that looking back, I can see that my brain is much more a creative brain and always has been. My granddad was an artist and an art teacher, and my dad is an engineer, and more of those kind of like systems-based things. And then I went into medicine because I was young and I thought it's exactly what I wanted to do. But actually, looking back, there's a lot of my life where I really enjoyed creative things, and quite rightly, medicine is not the place to be creative. About as creative as I got is making a new pro forma for something, and I can make a mean pro forma for sure, but it's not a place for me to let my creativity run loose, sadly.
You're gonna have to tell us what a pro forma is.
So just like a form. So if someone came in and they were having, we were clerking them, so we were taking information about why they'd come in. Having a pro forma with a format on it is helpful, and some of them can be improved. But that's about as far as it got with me making things more creative.
You were a pediatrician with a graphic design at heart, a graphic designer in your heart. That's it. There we go.
That's it. Yeah.
Sorry, Myron, go ahead.
Like the piece of that is like literally the only thing they allowed, the only change you'd be able to do within the system is changing data collection instruments before they're coded, not during or after coded, because the work that you are doing has to not matter. So of course we're not going to let you change anything after encoding, but beforehand, go for it, print out whatever you want.
Definitely. So it was.
I had it wasn't the same experience. Sorry about that, Chris K. I went to study neuropsych-based school psychology because I wanted to change the world of education and help people. And then when I got to the point, they open the briefcase up and they send you to practicum and they actually tell you what you're going to be doing. Not what people do in the future, but what you're going to fucking be doing next is bullshit. And so I got out. I was like, I'm not going to do this. I got in this to change things, not to reinforce the things that are screwed up now.
Yeah, I think that it's one of those things that in the UK, at least, the way it works is you make your decision about what you want to do with the rest of your life very early. And you're asking a 14-year-old child, let's put it there, to make a decision about what they want to do until they're the rest of their life. And there's only so much you can do to prepare someone for that. You can go and do as much work experience in a nursing home as you want, and you can read as much about it as you want. But actually, when you get there, that's the only way you're going to know. And some people are really lucky and they get there and it's exactly what they always thought it would be, and it's exactly what they want to do. But there's always going to be attrition of people who get to that point and they realize maybe it wasn't what they always wanted to do, or something comes up they find that they never knew was going to be their passion. And that's definitely what happened for me. And I got kind of almost a bit it was a bit of a curveball for me, a bit blindsided by the fact that there's this other thing that I have a passion for that's so different.
Yeah. Well, that's that part is very common. That's a very common thing, right? I mean, you get through all your schooling and you get the job and you realize, I'm not really helping people the way I thought, or I'm not using the skills that I really have, or something like that. So,
the systems, being a systems thinker and also being creative. Tell me if this resonates with you, Chris K. You're in the system and you're learning and you're like, okay, all right, cool. Next semester or next quarter, they're going to actually tell me how we actually solve some of these problems. And then you get the briefcase and you're like, hold on a second. This entire system is working the way it's supposed to.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's not okay.
No, it's
a system thinker that's
definitely. And I think that obviously on top of that, you've got the stress of the job, and all jobs are stressful in their different ways. And whether it's the hours or what you're doing, or worrying about the people you're helping and whether you're doing the right thing and those kind of things, it all adds up to a situation where, it takes its toll on you, physically, long term, and psychologically. And actually, especially in pediatrics, you see a lot of, things you wish you didn't have to see. And it's also great. And there's loads of amazing things that you get to do that actually are an absolute privilege. But it's balancing that against your own well-being and, seeing a family and making sure that you're doing all those things that are important in life as well. So yeah, that plays a big part in it. And that for me is where I kind of got into the game side of things as a bit of a release from my work. When I was in the first couple of years of being a junior doctor, so straight out of medical school, I was in a hospital in a town that's about an hour and a half drive away from my house. Mm-hmm. And I was staying there as a resident there in kind of halls of residence with my colleagues who were all in the same boat. My family was at home, so we felt a bit isolated and there wasn't much to do. And so we actually got together every Wednesday with board games as a way to sort of de-stress, come together, do something together when we were all in the same room, and we'd, make tea and we'd have cake and we'd kind of just have fun with board games. So that's how that was my in, really. That was the first time I'd played games with a specific reason for it in mind, I guess.
Yeah. Right. Rather than just,
that's really cool.
That's what people do. Yeah. Like to consciously choose games for a reason. That's cool. Yeah. I like that. These games are being used to de-stress, these people who are overworked and underpaid and this job that's all consuming. Do you have or know your gateway game? Like what game you started in?
Yeah, so I suppose really my first game I played, which we would kind of call, hobby game, everyone uses the term slightly differently, I realise, would probably be Pandemic. A group of newly qualified doctors, of course, what game are they going to choose? They're going to look at the one on the shelf and be like, oh, that one's about curing disease. Sounds perfect.
That's awesome.
And this was in 2015 sort of time, so way before pandemics were even a thing in our head that were going to happen anytime soon. And we loved the idea.
It became the most used word in the English language all across the planet.
Yeah. So that was probably my first intro, closely followed by Ticket to Ride, which I think a lot of people it'll resonate with because it's one of those, it's fairly, easily obtainable, especially in the UK. But actually, even before I got into sort of hobby games, when I was a kid, we used to go on a lot of caravan holidays in the UK. And as you probably know, the UK weather is rubbish at best. So there were lots of evenings in the caravan when it was tipping it down with rain outside. And my mum and dad would get a deck of cards out and we'd play, whist, and we'd play Newmarket and card games, which I was sort of 7, 8 years old. And I would ask them every evening, can we play card games? And they wish they'd never introduced me to them because it meant every evening of the holiday, I was ready with a pack of cards to play. But that was that was my first introduction, but my gateway games came much later in my life.
Yeah. Yeah, I have similar memories of my childhood, actually. I always say my father was like a walking Hoyle's book. Like he remembered the rules to like easily 100 card games.
Amazing.
Like, and would, be able to teach it to friends and family, and their friends would come over and teach us all these card games. And he rarely ever had to consult someone or a book or even, I don't even remember a time when someone else would say, have you ever played this? And he didn't know it.
Wow.
So yeah, that was a big part of my childhood, was playing card games.
It's similar with me. So my mum, she used to go to play like rummy and whist, kind of whist drives with my grandma and her friends when she was a kid. And I think that kind of really imprinted on her, and she wanted to pass that experience down to me. And that, I think there's so much of that is like people play games. They often then influence the next generation because it's something that's part of their normal day-to-day activities.
So I have to know, I've been smiling this whole time and like busting out laughing. These memories are coming to me. So Chris, does your dad know how to play cribbage?
Yes, yeah, for sure. We didn't play it as a kid, but yeah, for sure he knew cribbage. And what's the other one that everyone plays?
Oh hell.
No, you play it in teams.
There's regional names for the same games.
Yeah, that's true too. There are lots of. No, there's another extremely popular game other than cribbage that everyone bridge. Yes.
Oh yeah, bridge.
Okay.
Cribbage and bridge we did not play growing up, but I'm 100% sure that he knew how to play them. He knew all the like they had weird names like Oh Hell and Sickfoot and I don't know whatever else.
Yeah.
And poker, he'd know like, okay, this is the Tennessee poker. I'm making names up now. I don't know anything.
I'm the same. I'm very, from a poker point of view, I've come very recently to poker. So it's one of those things that when I hear people say things, I'm like, yep, could be real poker, could be made up.
Exactly. Yeah. That's the thing with a lot of the card games is he could have been making the rules up, I guess. Then I wouldn't even have known.
Right. Well, see,
puppy.
That's why I asked, because like Anna, she taught us how to play cribbage the other day, or she taught me how to play cribbage the other day, because I've been watching her and her mom play cribbage for like 30 years, and I just basically am like reading a book or playing a video game or sleeping or literally anything else. But Anna teaches. So Anna, okay, this is a question too. Like, what's your style? Maybe later on, or maybe if we have time. But what's like this for everyone out there too? What's your style when you are explaining games? Do you explain it to nurture? Do you explain it to have it be like an exploration of the rules for everyone, or do you explain it to win? My wife Anna, she explained cribbage to win, because she was like, okay, all right, so like you basically count to like 16 or 21 or whatever, or 31, and then that's it. Everyone goes around, and then every time it came around to her turn, she'd be like, bam, triple, double, dipple. I'm like, what the fuck? And she'd be like, oh, boom, the rook. I'm like, what the fuck is a rook? Like, we're from Chicago initially, and so cribbage is a very old game, and I'm like, what? The pauper is doing what? And she's like releasing new rules with combos the whole fucking time. So that's why I had to get the story out, because I was cracking up. But please proceed.
That's a good question. I like the idea that when someone's explaining rules to you, it can be perceived as they are
I give you the perception, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sometimes, and I'm not going to point any fingers, but sometimes when you're teaching rules to a new player, you teach them just the basics to get them into the game, particularly if there's someone who, I don't know, doesn't have like a super duper long attention span, maybe, or who gets tired after 30 seconds of rules explanation. So you get them into the game, and then you're like, okay, now here's the scenario. We're going to explain this other rule that you didn't have. So that's my defense of Anna, who we had on the show on a previous episode, and she had to refute a lot of things that are said about her in on this podcast. Anna actually
I listened to that episode. That was a really nice episode. I really enjoyed that one.
I can see Chris K.
Fun.
I can see Chris K to everyone, to you, Chris, as well, that or I like to call the group of Chris's the Chris Square. But they're both very, very cool. Like, we're literally actually looking at each other in rectangles right now, so like this is not an insult, but like, yeah, I forgot my train of thought.
Oh, it's okay. Everybody learns differently, I think, is probably where you were going, and you have to have a pretty varied approach to teaching rules.
Definitely.
Yes, and I remember. So also to everyone's defense, I can see that I did literally, as soon as she started explaining the rules, walk out of the room for like 20 minutes.
Yes, I've experienced that as a rule explainer to Myron. I'll just be back for 1 second. I'm like, oh, okay. We'll wait till he comes back.
You need to be a mobile rules teaching unit.
Yes, there we go. Actually, this is a good time. I would like our listeners to write in and tell us something about how they teach rules and what kind of techniques they use, and maybe some experiences or stories that they have that are funny. Give us your rule explanation stories. Send them to us via email at boardgamechats@gmail.com. So let's get back to the show. So we've heard your gateway game was the Pandemic, which I love, which is so fitting. How about the people?
Did they get it right?
Did they get it right?
You know what? The first few times we played it, we did not get it right. But, safe environment for experimentation, right? That's where you want to get it wrong.
Yeah, if only the real Pandemic was as easy to win as the game Pandemic, and it's not easy to win, but it's fun. How about the people that you've met while gaming? I mean, obviously you had your coworkers and fellow students and doctor learners. I don't know what the proper word is there. Obviously,
that does the job.
That does the job.
Yeah.
But how about like new people? How what's your game group like, and the friends that you've met?
Yeah, so I've got two particularly very good friends who I've met like through games that I don't necessarily think I would have met otherwise. The first is my friend called Rob Sparks. He's the co-host on our podcast, and he actually was, I joined Instagram after I got into board games thinking, oh, this is a cool place to find out about new things. He had a great account that had loads of beautiful pictures and lots of, thousands of followers. And one day he just posted saying, I'm going to UK Games Expo. Does anyone want to meet up for a coffee? And I was like, yeah, I'd love to meet up for a coffee. I don't know anyone else there, so that'd be a great opportunity. And when I met up with him, it turns out I was the only person to actually respond to that call for Feel.
Oh, no way.
And we met up and we hit it off straight away. And now we're like best of friends. We get on absolutely fantastically. And every year we go to UK Games Expo, we go back to the same cafe to reminisce about, the time when we met. So so shout out to Rob, who is a fantastic person, great game designer, and just a lovely human. So yeah,
Very
so
cool.
he's the one who I would never have met at all. I don't think I would have just had that parasocial thing when I'm like, I know him on Instagram, and that'll be about it.
Yeah, and that's his name is Rob Sparks.
Sparks, I know, that's a cool name, right?
Yeah, it is pretty cool. It sounds like an MI5 agent, Rob Sparks here. Yeah. Well, maybe more like
sorry.
CIA.
I thought you were going to say it sounds almost like Parks.
Oh
yeah,
that is true.
Sparks
and Parks.
Sparks and Parks.
Yes.
Well, that word is going to come up a little bit later, Myron. So save that for the big reveal.
Definitely.
So he's a game designer. Do you want to give him a shout out for some games that he's designed?
Yeah. So the one that's probably the most popular and people likely to have heard of is Tinder Blocks. So that's a game by Alley Cat Games, and it is basically reverse Jenga with tweezers. So it comes in a tin, and you're building a campfire out of little wooden cubes, and you get told by a card what to put on the fire, and if it falls down, you lose. And he's done a great job with that. And so that's the one that he's kind of known for. A good camping game. That's what I always take it camping.
A camping game, interesting.
Yeah.
I have not played it or heard of it until you and I had talked and you had mentioned it, and I looked it up, and I honestly believe I think that game was made specifically for me. So the rest of the world hopefully likes it, but I'm definitely going to be hunting down a copy because that looks fantastic and a lot of fun. I'm a sucker for dexterity games. My wife is always like, "Oh no, another dexterity game! How many of these do we need?" But I love them, and this will be fun.
Wrecked.
I'm a big fan too. I'm a big fan of dexterity games, but I understand not everybody is, and that's the great thing about games. Doesn't matter. You can try a different flavor. If that's not your flavor, there's loads of flavors of ice cream to choose from.
Exactly.
Absolutely. That's one of the really cool things too, and I want to stop. I want to stop for a second because there's a theme that's been going throughout this entire series. Particularly right now, as we're in a sort of plague situation, the fact that you were like, Rob is first an exceptional person, and then literally anything else. And I will say that Chris Cormier, I moved to Canada from Chicago by myself. Anna didn't come here for like 4 months, and when I came here, I was like, I'm alone. I'm autistic and I have ADHD. I didn't know I was autistic, but I knew that I always have trouble. Like, I can't make friends. But I've traveled around a bit, and every time I've gone to another place, even a place that was very dangerous for me to be, like Florida as a black guy in the 90s, like when they had just released the first stand your ground laws that applied to the highway, so that you could actually execute someone if you felt afraid when they're in a vehicle any distance away from you. Like literally, when I left that base, I was in the Navy, U.S. Navy. I drove straight to like Tucson, Arizona, because it was all those like Mississippi and blah blah blah. But every time I go to a place, I was like, I need to find exceptional people, and so I came to Board Game Bliss over here in Canada, and AJ immediately introduced me to Chris, who I would say is an exceptional person, and that's why we're all here today. Because we met exceptional people in the gaming industry. And another thing that I want to note too is, Chris K, you are the second person that gaming has actually saved their lives right now.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think that it's one of those things that I found gaming at a time where, had I not, I don't know what would have happened. It's a very, lots of jobs that you can be isolated, like psychologically they're difficult, you're not seeing your family. Having something like that, which is your beacon of hope, whether it's once a week in the evenings, that's the thing you kind of work towards and is going to be your respite. Completely agree. And I think that the power of games, people from the outside look at it and they see it almost sometimes as a childish thing, but I think that's because they've not been in the situation where they've realized just how powerful the social context of gaming can be. So I completely agree with that. Completely.
Very, very well said. Yeah, that's very true. I feel like the magic of gaming is the community that you build. It's not the games. Like, I have a big game collection and I like them and they're precious to me, right? Like, I'm Gollum there and there, my precious. Yes. But yes. The really important part is the friendships that we make along the way, and the things that we do with them, and with the way we rely on our community. It's hard in today's world and today's modern technology to make friends, let alone make a community, to build a community of people who are like-minded and, have similar interests, who are willing to spend time with you and teach you things, even if they don't really know that they're teaching you things,
To me, games are like, I like making music, and to me, playing games with friends is like music, in that it's not just the notes that are important, it's the space between the notes. And when you go and play a game with people,
so you study music a little bit,
and when you go and play
they
games,
say that,
definitely. And when you play games with people, it's not just the time you're playing the cards, it's not just the time you're taking your move, it's all those little moments in between where you're connecting with people and you're chatting and you're laughing, and almost they're the vehicle for the experience, but they're not the experience. Like listening to a song, the notes are the vehicle, but the experience of listening to a song is not just from the notes. That's kind of how I think about it in my head.
Yeah,
I think it's very simple.
That's a good way. It's very, very, very true. The games are just the reason that we're there, not the important part.
And one other thing too is I want to make it super clear that Chris Cormier and Rob Sparks being exceptional people, particularly in a time right now, is not easy.
No.
And so don't walk away from this conversation and be like, oh, well, those people are just good people and they were just born good people. They were born exceptional people. No. Being an exceptional person takes work. And I want to say, like, if you have someone in your life that's Chris Cormier or Rob Sparks today, thank you for being exceptional people.
Definitely.
Wow.
Completely agree.
Thank you, Myron. That's really wonderful. You are an exceptional person too. That's why you're part of my game group. I think I've been called an exceptional person so much today, I'm going to make a t-shirt that says exceptional person.
Yeah. I think we should do that.
Yeah, maybe. We'll have matching ones.
Definitely.
Let's do that. All right. So
be an exceptional person.
Be an exceptional person. I like it. But I don't want your other friend to feel left out. You said you had two friends that you had met through gaming. So we have to go back from gaming community and back to the individuals.
That's right. So
see, Chris keeps us on the rails.
Well, I'm very lucky that I've got multiple exceptional people. So clearly, I'm in a very fortunate place. The other person that I've met through gaming is one of my friends called Richard. He is a pediatric doctor, and I met him for the first time during a terrible night shift. He's a couple of years ahead of me, and we had a bit of a bad situation that we sorted out together. And in our debrief afterwards, we were talking about, he's like, "Oh, aren't you into board games? I'm really into board games too." And from that moment on, that was it. And he's got an insane collection of like games. Like I don't have to buy any games because I can go and he's got all the games.
Wow.
But we've been such good friends now that I was very honored that I actually recently became his newborn son's godfather. And I think that journey from meeting someone a few years ago who I'd never met before to now being in that position and being deemed a person who they would like me to be involved that much in their child's life. Again, without games, that wouldn't have happened. That's down to that. So that's really nice.
That's really special. Wow.
Yeah.
Like it's not, I guess, uncommon for someone to, choose that person that they work with to be their, sorry, what is it called? It's your
so I'm godfather to
Godfather.
Arthur,
So Godfather.
Yeah.
So it's not unusual for someone to find someone from work to be the godfather to your child, but when you game with someone, you really get to know them, and
that's it.
That they've discovered that, deep down inside that you're a good person, a trustworthy person, someone who will be a good mentor to their child. That's wonderful.
At first, though, I will say, though, it seems a little sus. I think Richard was like scoping you out. He's like, you know what? I think I heard a dice in his bag.
That could have been it.
You know what? The new resident is having a trouble. You know what? I'm going to take now to find out.
That's it. Maybe that was it. Maybe it was all the cards falling from my pocket as I walked down the corridor that gave it away.
Yeah. Yeah. Or it could have been as simple as like, okay, look, none of my friends want to play this game.
Yeah.
I'm gonna bring Chris in. He seems like a good mate. Maybe I can get him to help me play this.
That could be it. That could be where it started.
Well, there's like the trainer strat, and then there's the pusher strat. So like, who are you? Like, right? Like out there in the crowd, who are you? Are you the villain? Are you the drama? Are you the person that's bringing people in? But like they're characters. Like they're characters, Chris.
Yeah.
Chris Square. They're characters. I think there's something to this.
Definitely.
And literally, there's like a game idea. Like literally, the person that gets people into board games. Yeah. It's like a reverse Munchkin.
It's a set collection.
But like for the person that collects game like board game groups.
People.
Because you have a board game group that you play Risk with, and you have a board game group that you get high or drunk with and play Dr. Eureka.
Right. There's a different group, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Definitely.
So you had mentioned in your conversation that you went to the UK Game Expo. I have never been. It looks wonderful and fantastic. Again, I would love to visit my cousin, Rita, who lives in the UK. But let's be honest, it would probably be around the time when the UK Game Expo was happening. So when that
coincidences happen. Coincidences happen.
Yeah. But why don't you tell us a little bit about that? Oh, sorry, go.
Yeah, I was going to say, coincidentally, I'm actually going to be on a mini tour in Europe next year around the fall.
Oh,
that's good timing to be in Europe for gaming conventions, he said suggestively.
Maybe we need to do like a on location podcast episode or something and figure that out. That would be awesome.
Yeah. Hey, does Rita have a guest room? Anyway, I'm sorry.
Two guest rooms. Shout out to Rita. No, I want to hear about the UK Game Expo. I've never been, and I suspect that there's a lot of people who are listening in Canada and the United States who, get to go to their own local cons, but, probably haven't gone to the UK one. So tell us a little bit about that. What did you like?
Yeah.
What didn't you like?
So I've been with both my hats on now, both my attendee hat and my stall holder hat, I suppose, or
Right.
employee hat. And I think from both perspectives, it's just a great, great place to be. Like many conventions for things that are quite niche, you suddenly realize you're in a huge room with thousands of other people who also love the thing that you love. That thing that you have to hold back about when you want to talk to your spouse or housemate about it every single day, and they don't really want to talk to it as much as you do. You can go to a room now and you don't have to apologize for that. You can let your nerd flag fly. You can just get really stuck in there. And I think just that is so liberating as an experience. I absolutely love it. So it's over 3 days, generally, the one in the UK.
Okay.
And this year was actually the best attendance, the biggest attendance they've ever had.
Wow.
Which, coming out of a pandemic, I think is a really interesting dynamic.
Yeah.
And as a stall holder who is playtesting lots of games with lots of the public, I realized how many of them are clearly new to games in the last couple of years because of the pandemic.
Right.
And so we have the cohort of people who played games anyway. Now we've got a whole new raft of people who are coming in. I just think it's amazing. I think the more the merrier, right? It's good for everybody.
Yeah.
Get more people in, more people are interested, more people from different backgrounds with different viewpoints. Everyone wins from that point of view. So that was really nice to see this year. Lots of families, I noticed, like young families particularly, seem to be quite a big part of the attendee group, at least who came to play the games that I was peddling. So yeah, that's fantastic. And because it's the biggest one in the UK by a country mile, it is everyone goes. Basically, everyone who can go goes to that. It's in pretty central place in the UK. Your European publishers and your UK publishers all try to get across to it. And it's just fun. I just absolutely love it. I was exhausted by the end, but boy, there's not much I'd rather be exhausted by than just meeting people and having fun and seeing smiles and having a laugh, basically.
Oh, that sounds amazing. Yeah, that sounds like fun.
Yeah.
And if you like Warhammer, obviously Games Workshop have the biggest stand because it's the UK. So,
right.
And that's the other thing. It's like they have I've never seen a stand so big, though I haven't been to any of the even bigger cons. So I haven't been to Gen Con and I haven't been to Essen. So, it looks big to me, but maybe it's just a small stand with Essen standards in there. Who knows?
Who knows? I'm sure it's big. It sounds like a great con.
Yeah,
definitely going to have to make the trip to check that out at some point.
Yeah.
But then it's like, while I'm there, it's like, when does Essen go? Can we hit them both at the same time? And then it's like, oh, you know what? I've always wanted to go to Prague, and we're not far from Egypt. Let's go see the pyramids. And then all of a sudden, I'm living there.
We are
literally
spoiled by how close we are to all those things.
Yeah.
Literally, I'm thinking, and so I used to live in Chicago, right? And so from Chicago to Europe, it can be difficult. You'll wind up just automatically having to go into Zurich and doing because I'm like, right now, literally, right before you said that, Chris K, I was like 3 months. I think for June, be here for the UK Expo in June at early June, and then just be there June, July, and August, and get the retreat done, and just find a place, Rita's guest room. Our wives can see on the floors. They're pretty sturdy. I mean, because we'll be there professionally for us, and so we, our writers that we have to be. pampered a little bit because we're the we're the stars of the show.
Of course.
Yeah.
But like,
Sherry brings me
2 or 3 months
coffees and
in
red
Europe.
M&Ms, so that's what
Right.
keeps me
That
going.
sounds like a rider if ever I heard one.
Yeah. Anna brings me in the morning. She brings me precisely 16 grams of mixed nuts with my 2 chewable Vivants in there.
Very nice.
The sugar alcohol berry flavor tastes really fucking good with mixed nuts. It's an amazing boost in the morning. It turns out I don't even need coffee.
Yeah, I need the coffee. I can't go without coffee. So at the UK Games Expo, is there an element of prototyping and playtesting?
Yeah, there is. And actually, the first year I went, so I'd never been before, and this was before I was into games, if that's what you want to call it. I went, and there was the Playtest UK area. So there's a organisation in the UK called Playtest UK, and they organise playtests in local places, but they also do at UK Games Expo the playtest area. So there were loads of tables set up, and designers were there, and they'd booked slots, and the public can just go and see which tables are free. And I sat down at one of those tables and I played a game, and I was like, I didn't ever really think about the fact you can make games. This is cool. Maybe one day I'll think about making a game. And didn't really think about it for months and months later. But that was definitely like the seed was planted there. And then the shoots started to come up through the ground over the next few months. That's inspiration. Awesome. Yeah, definitely. So yeah.
And from there you started thinking about game development and game design and your own games.
Yeah, so I from there basically started devouring anything game related I could find. So podcasts, so Ludology podcast, like I blasted through that. I downloaded lots of books about it. I joined Facebook groups about it, and I just kind of lurked for a long time, just absorbing like a game design sponge was my kind of what I was going for. And then I started entering a few little contests on BGG and trying out the odd little game design here or there, which I think is a fantastic way to get into it because you've got a deadline, constraints for a design, people willing to give you feedback straight away. It's all the things you need to force you to the end of a game design. You have to make rules because people have got to be able to play it remotely. So those kind of things are incredible. And from there, I then started thinking about, I'm learning a lot. So start the podcast, have a chat about it. Because at the end of the day, me and Rob love just talking about game design. So we just thought, well, why don't we have these chats anyway? Why don't we just record them? Someone might find them interesting. Let's make them 10 minutes. And then people can listen to it on the bus or, whatever, 10 minutes they've got to spare. And that's how I kind of came into that.
10 minutes is that
Chris
magic.
K,
that's brilliant.
It's awesome. I listen to stuff at 3X. So the stuff that I listen to learn, I actually listen to it at 3X. The stuff that I listen to, and so what that means is I was able to get through it in like 2.5 minutes, and I was like, okay, boom.
Wow. An injection of information.
You sound really, really funny, but the information's all there, and it's all still. But everybody talks really fast, and they do a lot of this.
Well, I happen to study the brain science, and it turns out the autism and ADHD is a superpower, because when that hits when those signals hit my brain, like they actually are coming fast enough to actually cause me. I probably produce more blah blah blah, and the opposite of adrenaline, the one that causes stress,
cortisol,
that then forces there's another one inside of the brain. Cortisol probably causes it to happen inside the brain, but it's another one, nor something, and then adrenaline causes me to do this stuff. Thank you, Chris.
Myron is got this like big flex on now. He's like, we've got a doctor on the show. I've got to bring out the big words. Let's get some Latin going.
And I've packed mine into a dusty box in the back of my brain for temporarily.
And you're like, I want to forget that for a while, please. Can we talk about tile laying and dice rolling?
Let's do that. I forgot my train of thought.
It's really interesting how it like goes into your brain. I think those things are always interesting. So if we can help by speeding us up, then go for it. Speed us up. 3.5 minute design challenge.
Yes. So
so I got it. I got the content. It was really great. Yeah.
your podcast. Tell us the name and where people can hear it. Obviously, it's about game design. It's obviously.
Yeah, so it's called the 10-Minute Design Chat. And you can type that into Google, just put 10-Minute Design Chat podcast in. It'll come up on all the services that are available for that. And it actually stemmed from, I designed a website that had a random game generator on it called the 10-Minute Design Challenge. And the idea was you'd get a constraint that would be a mechanism, a component, and a theme. And you could hit the random generator button, a 10-minute timer would go off, and you just use it as a design exercise. That's actually where the 10-minute thing came from originally. It's just accidental. But that then led to the 10-Minute Design Chat with Rob. So, yeah, you can find it all over the internet.
And that's your friend Rob Sparks, who is your co-host for that.
It is.
Great.
Yes, it is.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. So we talk about mechanics, mechanisms, depending on how you prefer to say it. We've got a whole episode on that little wrinkle, and themes, and we try and keep it super accessible for people. So if you've never designed a game, you don't know what game design is, you can come and have a listen. It doesn't take too long, and hopefully we try and make it vaguely amusing on the way through.
Cool. I will definitely have a tune in and subscribe.
That's great.
Is it okay if I'm literally putting this inside of my, I use Otero for research. I'm actually putting this in because this is going to provide literally mechanics for people to build workshop experiences for.
Use it. That's what it's there for.
For les gens, for people.
Very good. Very good.
So you were talking about game design and playtesting earlier on, and one of the things that kind of came from playtesting and learning about this was a realization that in Nottingham we have lots of game designers, but there's not any regular playtesting, which is really unusual. It's one of those things that just happened over the years. And I was listening to the Game Crafter podcast actually a couple of years back, and I accidentally put it from most recent to least recent. And one that came up was about organizing a Protospiel. So Protospiel, for people who don't know, is kind of a playtesting event. Started off in the US, and they're fairly popular across different countries now, but no one had ever done one in the UK. So I was like, should we give it a go and see if it goes well here? And that actually ended up with me doing Protospiel Nottingham, which 2019 was when we did the first year, which is nice. So a not-for-profit playtesting event, which has gone down really well. So that was another kind of, I guess, little tab on the book of my entry into game design, I suppose, doing that and meeting people through that just by organizing an event.
Excellent. So that's the first Protospiel in the UK.
It is, yeah. So Playtest
Is it
UK,
the only one, I guess?
Yes, it is. It's Playtest UK, who I mentioned earlier, do small your kind of weekly meetups and monthly meetups, but this was the first kind of annual big one that we did. So I decided there's only one way to find out whether it's going to work, which is to do it and give it a go. And we managed to raise £950 for charity, and everyone had a good time. So we're doing it again. We tried to do it again, but obviously pandemic.
I imagine with the pandemic, it didn't happen the last couple of years. So that was 2019 that you started it.
It was.
And then the next year immediately would be canceled because everything in the world was canceled.
Of course.
So you're having another one this year?
Yep. So it's November this year that we're doing it again.
Excellent.
So that's exciting.
It sounds like a lot of work. Is it a lot of preparation and planning?
It is. I'm one of those people that I like that kind of organization. I'm one of those people that most people would probably find that not necessarily a thing they'd enjoy, but I quite enjoy event management, if you want to call it that. I kept it simple, and I kept it, simple pricing, and I didn't have a website or anything at that point. I just used a booking page, put all the info there, made simple signs and banners and things, and just reached out to companies for donations of prizes for a raffle, things like that. I was really lucky because Panda Game Manufacturing came in and said, yeah, we'll do some sponsorship. Game Crafter said, yeah, we always help with Protospiels. You're in the UK, but that doesn't matter. We'll send you some stuff. So I had a lot of great backing, especially given that I wasn't, and nobody knew who I was. I just came out of the blue to do this thing, and they took a chance on me. And that's really nice because it's now blossomed into something that people are aware of in the UK, which is great.
Yeah, that's excellent. Yeah. So is it going to be your second or your third one?
This will be the second one. Yeah.
The second. So you guys were shut down fully the whole time like we were. Yeah.
Basically, yeah. It was just as I was getting excited to do the 2020 kind of into 2021, it kind of obviously all happened. So shut it down for that. But it's given me time to think about how I want to do it differently and make it a bit longer and take on some feedback. So.
Well, actually, you said something really interesting earlier. You had said that this year the UK Game Expo was a lot larger than they had before. And I thought that was really interesting because my assumption was that, as we're all coming back and feeling safe after, being locked in our homes for so long, that, we're really desperate to get together with our friends and meet new friends and start gaming again with groups in public. I would think that
if you're
there
not
would be
autistic, though.
Yes, perhaps.
It turns out it's as making that realization has been rather difficult. But please continue, Chris.
Okay.
In general, you're right, though. Absolutely, getting to people.
But I would have thought that the numbers would go down because, people are still, there is a significant portion of the population that's still being careful, myself amongst them. We didn't go to our local con here this year. We were there in spirit and supported how we could, but we decided not to go as a personal decision. But, my sense is that it's still growing strong and things are at least as strong as they were before the pandemic lockdown and or stronger. So that's really interesting. So I think I'm going to be talking to you at the end of November and seeing how your Protospiel went. Was it 20% more people, or was it about the same number? That kind of thing. I really want to hear that. It's very interesting.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing myself.
And I think what you said was, because so many people came to modern board games during the pandemic, because you're stuck indoors with the family, your wife, your kids, and what are we going to do besides watch TV and be on our screens? People were like, let's order games from online, learn them and play them. And I think that, this worldwide lockdown has created more gamers and a bigger, customer base and friend base for all of us.
Yeah. On more gamers.
Definitely. More gamers is
they're
just
like more gamers and it's following the same trajectory that like the World of Work is following. One of the things that's happened is all of a sudden there are people who accepted going to the big building all day and being in their desk and looking busy and doing all the appropriate normal things. And by the way, I define normal as the appropriate response to power. Synonym, compliance. That is a neurodivergent definition for normal. Think about it. System thinkers. I'm right. There are some people in this call that literally walked away from unlimited universal employment.
Yeah.
We did that because we realized that the system was completely broken.
Yeah. It's one of those things that it gives people, like we said before, it's games just in general give people that ability to escape from whatever it is they want to, right? And I think that during the pandemic, that's what people wanted to do. They wanted to escape from reality for a bit into different worlds. I also will be really interested to see, obviously, Dungeons and Dragons has had a huge injection because of Stranger Things and sort of the younger generation coming to that because of that TV show. And I do wonder whether that'll have a kind of knock-on effect on people coming to tabletop games in general who are younger and from a different generation. I'd be really interested to see over the next 6 months if we get another like boost of injection through that kind of thing, because those sort of things can't be underestimated and how powerful they can be. I mean, Stranger Things has relaunched Kate Bush's career overnight, so there's no reason it can't do the same thing for board games and D&D and all these kind of things, which would be great. As I say, more people is better from my point of view.
More people.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And that's the thing too, right? Like from a neurodivergent perspective, right? So like everyone is trying to get back, but one of the things that we've experienced like responding to that definition of normal, but like from the security of our homes.
Yeah.
And so that's where the pushback is coming from. We're like, actually, I don't like to go to in-person things.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to ask this question because I'm neurodivergent. Are there, what are the opportunities for people to participate that don't or can't
so
participate in person?
That is a really, really important question. I think it's something I try and consider when I'm event managing things anyway. What's really great that's come out of the pandemic is that for playtesting point of view, if we're talking about that kind of thing, there are loads of now online playtesting groups where it all happens online, and it is a majority online. So for people who find that maybe a more comfortable environment for them, that kind of doing it more remotely, they can still be involved with that kind of thing, which I think is great. And there's loads of those about. I also think that the way we create events and the way that we build the infrastructure of those events is very important. So for Protospiel Nottingham, one of the things that we're going to have sort of breakaway rooms where you can go to just sort of get away from the noise. You can get away from the fact there's lots of people doing stuff. If you need to step away for a minute because you're feeling overstimulated or overwhelmed, we're going to try and provide that experience so you can feel like you can come to an event knowing that might happen, but you've still got an option of what you can do if that did happen, which hopefully might mean that we're opening the door to people who they're on the fence about whether it works for them. And that's something I'm trying to build in, with feedback from people who know what that's like, because I don't.
Interesting.
It's not my place to assume how effective that will be until someone tells me.
Well, if you one note on that, Chris K, if at that point when you're beginning to plan that, I do happen to be a system coach, and I facilitate. And my graduate degree is in adult education anyway, and so and I'm autistic and ADHD. So when you get to that point, if you have questions, consider me a person from that community that you can ask.
Will do. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Excellent.
And I say the school science, school psychology piece, so I have some ideas on what can help, but that's neither here nor there.
I love it because you're originally from this healing profession, and the approach really mirrors that, right? Like it really shows in what you're doing and thinking about and talking about and how you're approaching these different issues. So that's really exciting and interesting. Thank you for doing that.
Yes.
We have to, before we quit, we have to talk about the company that you're working for, Paper Fort Games, and oh boy, I got rid of my piece of paper. Paper Fort Games, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Yes, okay. Yes, Paper Fort Games. For some reason, I get other words thrown in there, and then I can't remember it properly for the rest of my life. Paper Fort Games is the company, and the new game that you guys are working on and are going to publish, Cosmoctopus.
Yes, Cosmoctopus.
Please. Why don't we start with Paper Fort Games? Why don't you talk to me about, tell us about how you got into Paper Fort and that process.
Will do. So when I was starting to have thoughts about, do I want to maybe take a change in my career path, I like to have a plan rather than just pull the plug. So I arranged...
That's a good one.
Yeah. I arranged via lots of paperwork to basically have a year out from medicine, with the option to come back at the end of the year if I decided that was the right thing to do. And leading up to that, I had to make a CV. For medicine, it's really weird. For medicine, you don't really have a CV because you have qualification and you prove you can do skills, but otherwise there's not a huge amount other. So your jobs are very one after the other. So I was like, I need to actually write a CV. And I did that, and I put together my tabletop CV, if you like, and I passed it over to a couple of people I'd met during Protospiel a few years ago, who had supported it, and said, look, I'm going to go for some jobs in the industry. Is this CV, does it seem reasonable? And they got back to me and they said, yeah, it does seem really reasonable. And we've just had a really successful Kickstarter, and we're going to be taking on some more employees. And it just happens to be the month that you're stopping medicine. How do you feel about coming and working for us? I thought about it for about 1/1,000,000,000 of a second, and then I was like, that sounds great. So,
first of all, I have to interrupt you. I'm sorry, I have to interrupt.
Yeah.
I love that idea. You're getting into a completely new industry, and the language that you use in letters and in resumes is different. And So rather than just, pay a consultant and you may have done that as well, but and just rely on someone else's expertise and your own confidence of, I know how to do this, to send it off to some people and say, does this look normal? Does it sound normal? I think that's a brilliant idea. And, I never thought about it in terms of tabletop gaming, and I think that it works really well. So I think that's an excellent tip for anybody right now who's like, you know what, this job sucks. I really want to go work for my favorite board game publisher. Start with that. And in your case, it led right to a job, like instantly before you even finalized that resume.
It's a tricky one. I sent lots to different people, and as usual, you don't get it. But that was the one where they were like, "Oh, we're in this situation," and I can't like overstate how lucky I am to have been in that situation. What I don't want people to think is that like that's the normal. I've been very, very lucky that like I happened to do it at the right time. I happened to be in the same city like as the company. I've known them from before, and I have built up a skill set over the years just by doing other stuff that makes me a candidate for that.
Right.
So,
but the stars aligned in this great way, and it was perfect timing, and it worked out really well for both of you.
It was.
But,
so I started there in February this year, and they were making another sort of sister company called Paperthought Games that has a focus more on family, smaller, slightly lighter games. And they had signed, just the month before I joined, they had signed Cosmoctopus, which is a game by Henry Audubon, who's designed Parks and Space Park. And they said to me, there you go, there's the contract. This is Henry. Off you go. Make it so. And so my introduction into it has been like I am learning all the skills and trying to do all the things that takes a game from like design to finished product and fulfillment. So development, bit of graphic design, advertising, Kickstarter promotion. I've done a lot of weird things in the past 6 months. I bought a 4 meter inflatable tentacle from China and had to get it insured to take to the UK Games Expo. Never thought I'd be doing that in my professional
tentacle.
life. Yeah. So
that's something that I don't think would ever come in with pediatrics at all.
I don't think so. I mean, we can get away with funky socks in pediatrics, but I think a 4-foot tentacle on the wards would probably be a health and safety nightmare.
And maybe a nightmare for some of the kids too.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah.
Well, certainly not as a junior pediatrician, right? You don't get to do stuff like that then. Yeah.
That's it. So I've basically they've put a lot of trust in me, and I'm working on this game, and I've had a fantastic time working with Henry. Like I knew Henry through his games before I met him, and now I get to do that as my job, which is just blows my mind. So yeah, we're bringing this game to Kickstarter at the end of October, and it is a tentacle gathering engine building game. And the idea is that you're playing as devotees to a cosmic octopus, who is not your standard Cthulhu. He's actually very cute. He's based on the Dumbo octopus. Cute. Yeah.
So
and the idea is he's based on a type of octopus called the Dumbo octopus, and they have fins on the top of their head that look like big ears, like Dumbo, and they use them to move. So I was like, if we're going to have the octopus, let's make him cute. And the idea is we're playing as devotees, trying to understand Cosmoctopus's ways. The truth is, he's probably a bit indifferent to our existence and very hard to get his attention. He's more like a toddler, like a space toddler that's kind of we're trying to get in contact with. But we're very serious about the whole thing. So it's got a bit of a tongue-in-cheek kind of vibe to it. It's a really lovely engine-building game. Lots of people have played it have said, I've played Splendor in the past and this feels like Splendor, but now I've got loads more choices and I can do loads of combos and it feels really cool. And that's kind of the thing that people have said it reminds them of. It's lovely. It's a great game, and it's the kind of game I like to play. So as a developer, it's a dream. So we're circling the plug hole. That sounds a bit weird. Not circling the plug hole. Approaching the Kickstarter is on the horizon. So coming soon from us, from Paperthought Games.
And I've seen a box cover. I've seen some of the artwork, and the Cosmoctopus, the octopus from space. He's very cute, sort of this pink polka dotty kind of look, color, purpley sort of color, and not scary but fun. It looks like fun. And I believe I've seen some components. Is there actual like little tentacles that you place on the cards? Is that how it is?
So it comes with a Cosmoctopus's head, who moves through a configuration of tiles called the Inky Realm, which is where he resides in space. Apparently, the
Inky Realm.
Yeah, apparently the way the lore goes is if you go to the bottom of the sea, you'll pop out in space, and in between those two places is the Inky Realm, which is where Cosmoctopus lives.
Nice.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Okay.
Like that.
All right.
Yeah, and so the tentacles come in that you win the game by getting 8 tentacles and opening a portal, but the actual points for getting tentacles, you get physical little miniature tentacles that you can put on a summoning board to show that you're almost.
And what are they made out of? Because they look amazing.
They're cast out of. So we actually 3D printed our prototype ones. It's one of the absolute amazing things about working in an office where I have a 3D printer next door. But they will be cast in kind of your plastic, like miniatures would be, in a nice kind of vibrant color. So they've got a really. The fact you move Cosmoctopus's head around has got a really nice toy feel to it, a tactility to the game, that you get to move this cute little octopus around the board.
And those tentacles look like they're coming up out of the card. Like it really is quite a cool little piece. I think it's going to be a game that will get a lot of attention on the table at conventions and board game cafes. It's like, what is that? I got to find out more about these tentacles. It looks pretty cool that way. And the tentacles, is that going to be like standard with the game, or is that like a Kickstarter?
No, that'll be the standard. So the game is going to come with those, and everyone will get those. Cool. It's such an integral part.
Right. So Cosmoctopus is going to be on those lists of board games with the coolest components, it seems like, because, I think so. That's going to happen. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I have a question about the game.
Yes,
the manufacturing piece is very fascinating. Why? Okay, so like I understand that 3D printing is being used for prototypes, but like it gets casted because the casting is cheaper for the durability, and there are other factors, right?
Yes. Yeah.
But why can't games be 3D printed like anywhere?
So
because like and so the reason I'm asking this question is SpaceX actually prints their Draco engines. They fucking print them. And I'm like, okay, all right. If an engine can be printed that can withstand like 3 bajillion bar, right? What's up?
I completely agree, and actually, it's a limitation of the fact that like industrial scale 3D printing is still very niche in kind of as a technique, and for someone like SpaceX who've got, they can invest billions of pounds in new technology, it will. I guarantee it will filter through to kind of your game manufacturing things later on. And there are services where you can send them an STL file, a 3D file, and they will print you X thousand of whatever piece you want. It's a very time-consuming process, however, and that's part of what I think the reason we don't use it so much at the moment is you've got to have an enormous bed size to fit all these tokens on, as opposed to having one mold that does one set of components in one quick kind of clap, if you like. And I think that's part of the reason at the moment also. They've been using molded plastic components for years, and I think it's a technology that obviously manufacturers are very used to.
That's the system thing. That's why I had to ask you, Chris K.
Yeah.
Because I knew that you would probably get there.
Yeah.
And so that validates my hypothesis.
But I think it will change.
The hypothesis is, right. So like right now, it's prohibitively expensive and no one's ever done it before. Yeah. Hypothesis.
Yeah.
No one's ever done it before because no one's ever done it before.
Yeah. But I think it will go that way, and it will give us so much more flexibility on what can be made and what can be done. And I'm excited to see where it goes. We're very lucky because having it in the office for me to make prototypes is perfect, because I don't have to like get someone to make 1,000 copies of tentacles. I can go and print one of each type out and then see what it looks like, and then be like, cool, I'll print 20 more. And 2 hours later, I've got a whole set of tentacles ready for the game. I can go and spray them pink in my garden, and everyone's a winner. apart from my garden, which ends up a bit pink. But other than that,
like those flowers weren't pink yesterday.
And so that's like a literally, like, I expect any day now some company's going to be like, yo, we can do this.
Yeah. I mean,
they're probably already doing that.
Gamecraft do on-demand printing of components now for certain minis and stuff, but it's still filament printing, filament 3D printing. And actually what we need to get to is the point where we're doing like resin printing and stuff. Yeah.
I think this is filament.
Yeah. And filament's great, and it's this is really easy, low barrier to entry for people. The more complicated you get, the harder it gets to do with filament. But actually, we're so close to that kind of, like, we're on the brink of the technology becoming so easy to do on an industrial scale that I would predict in the next 5 years that will be a pretty standard thing that are being offered by big game manufacturers.
Yeah,
what I'm seeing term. Here's like a. Oh, sorry. Oh, I was going to say, sorry, real quick, Chris. Here's the thing that I see as like a near term thing that could work. Okay, so we'll manufacture based on the way manufacturing is done because we're a business that exists right now, right? Mm-hmm. However, for your neurodivergent person, so the person is colorblind. You can print out Joe's pieces.
Yeah.
For your grandparents, you can print these super high contrast pieces.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so you create the demand. And hold on a second, accessibility is good for everyone.
Yep, agreed.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that would actually be scalable right now.
Yeah, I think those kind of things are really important. And thinking about how something when I'm developing a game, I think of from the ground up, not just color blindness, but lots of other things like tactility problems, being able to pick stuff up. Are the components too small? Are they easily distinguishable by feel? Those kind of things, like, is something we have to think of. And if we have those dials to turn, that you could buy a game and you could say, in this game I want miniatures that are 50% bigger because my grandma wants to play and she can't pick up tiny miniatures, and you could do that at the point of buying it, that would be an amazing world to live in, to be able to have this.
See, Chris, that's that system. That's we should talk more at some other time.
Definitely.
Myron's got lots of ideas. It sounds like the two of you need to connect about some of them. I mean, it's amazing what's happening with 3D technology. Well, all I was going to jump in and say is I just recently saw, I think it was a TikTok, a video of a guy who his workshop set up for his 3D printing business. And I don't even know what he prints. Like, it could be board game components, it could be, a whole combination of things, but he had like a series of these metal industrial shelves, and there's sort of 3 shelves, an upper one, a middle one, and a lower one, and on each one was 2 3D printers. So he's got this setup of 12 3D printers that he can send files to, so that there's constantly things printing out as he's going about his day. I thought, wow, that's where we're getting to, is like people are turning this into full-time jobs and mass producing it with these tiny little 3D printers that were made for you were made to have one that you could sort of play with, and now people are like, let's do this on a massive scale.
Definitely. It's amazing. Print farms exist now for those kind of things, and if you need 10,000 minis making in resin, then that can be done. If you can pay the price, it's still fairly expensive, you can get it done, no problem. We're just this close to it being like a thing that can be done for that can be economically viable.
Mm-hmm. We're running out of time, so we're going to have to wrap it up. And but I do want to hear. I've heard a story about a sheep.
We've got to get the sheep.
And you and a sheep. I have to hear this sheep story and get that out.
That's fine. So yes, so an interesting story, one to tell at dinner parties, I suppose, is that I was once on holiday in Wales, which is where I'm originally from. Lots of sheep in Wales, kind of like, people know that anyway, I think, in general. Right. We were walking along a bay close to the sea, and it was a very narrow bit of sand, and on the other side there were fields, and someone was walking their dog. Now, this kind of area, you've got to be really careful because there are lots of sheep around, but the bay was empty as far as they could tell, and the dog had to run off. Underneath a hedge, unbeknownst to them, was a sheep having a nice nap that suddenly saw a dog running towards them. And they did what sheep do, which is they ran in the other direction. But instead of running into the field, they jumped straight into the water. And it turns out that sheep take on lots of water because they're essentially wearing a jumper. And this sheep couldn't get out of the water and tried to swim even deeper and then went under the water. So I was kind of witnessing this and felt uncomfortable with a sheep in the water and thought they might be worth me trying to do something about it. So I ran over.
I don't know them as being good swimmers or anything too.
No.
And like you said, they've got all this cotton or whatever on them that it just weighs them. It's like a suit of armor, I imagine. Basically. It's just pulling them down.
Had the sheep been shorn recently and not had any wool on it, it probably wouldn't have had a problem getting out again. The problem was he had his thickest wool jumper on, so he was just going under. So I ran over and I pulled the sheep out. I underestimated how heavy a fully waterlogged sheep is. Very heavy. Carried it out over to like the thing, and it wasn't really breathing, doing anything. And I was a bit like, well, I'm not going to give a sheep mouth to mouth. That seems unsanitary.
Yes, you don't want that.
However,
you don't want that picture on the net, on the web.
That's it. However, the anatomy of a sheep can't be too different to the anatomy of a human, right? I know that it's got a rib cage and there must be things under there I need to do. I'll just start doing a bit of the old chest compressions because, it might get some of the water out. And lo and behold, if you do chest compressions on a sheep, it does work in this situation.
It works.
And this sheep just spurted loads of water out of its mouth and then rolled over and just sat there and didn't move and looked at me and didn't stop looking at me, and I backed off and I gave it like 20 minutes watching it from afar, and it stood
up. Sure it was still breathing, right?
It was, yeah.
Yeah.
And it stood up and it wandered very slowly over to like a patch of sun and it plonked itself down, and that was it. I was like, cool. No need to tell the farmer about the fact that one of his sheep almost died because of a dog. Because sadly, I don't know what it's like in other countries, but if your dog chases one of a farmer's sheep and they come out, then they're not going to be impressed about that situation, and your dog might not last very long. So I'm very glad that we didn't have to. Yeah. So I'm glad that we didn't have to get the dog involved in the whole situation.
Exactly.
So yeah, that was my random
saved
story.
The sheep.
Well,
you
who knew? It might have sorted itself out if I had not come along. I might have just made the situation worse, but the outcome was that the sheep was okay. So I guess, happy ending in the end.
Chris Kingsnorth, sheep saver, sheep hero, hero to sheep. Yeah. I love it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. I'm glad that the sheep was okay. That would have been
master of sheeple.
Terrible. Sheeple, yes.
I like it. So yeah, that's the sheep story. There is one.
Very cool. Well, thank you for telling us about that.
You're very welcome.
And thank you for coming on the show. Like, this has been fascinating. We've got some good tips. I love the story about coming from pediatrics into gaming and that kind of thing. And, sheep saving, when you can tell a story about saving the life of a sheep, I mean, that's a good day. I love it.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure. I've listened to lots of your episodes. I've loved them. And so to be able to come on here and actually talk to you has been an honor. So thanks very much for having me on.
Thank you. Before we let you go, I always like to ask people, what are you doing now and where can people reach you? And I don't think we said when Cosmoctopus is going to be on Kickstarter. So if you could mention that as well.
Sure. Yeah. So our date for launch is the 25th of October. You can actually, if you search Cosmoctopus now on Kickstarter, you can go to the preview page is ready. So you can sign up to be notified if you're interested in that when it does launch. As for myself, I generally on social media and things as myself, I'm Tabletop Apprentice is my name on things. So you'll see me on Instagram as Tabletop Apprentice and on BGG I'm Tabletop Apprentice. And that's the best way to find me personally if you're interested in the games I've been playing or the tips that I kind of come up with when I'm, daydreaming. That's where I post that stuff. So that's where to find me. And then we talked about the other things, the podcast and Protospiel. And so you can generally Google search them, which is helpful.
And paper.
The glamour shot is beautiful, Chris, by the way. Chris K.
Oh, okay. You're looking them up online, I guess. That's why you're saying it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, Chris, as you said earlier, my setup is a command center. It's ridiculous. So I can, yeah.
Yes, you're all multitasking as we talk. So, and Paperworks website.
Yep. So
do you guys have a website?
Yes. So the best way we do a lot on Instagram. So if you search Paper Fort Games on Instagram, that will get you there. We are also www.paperfortgames.com. But that takes you generally to a mailing list at the moment. But we'll be getting more on there soon. So yeah, best to find us on Instagram or to go straight to Kickstarter pages, for example. So yeah.
Great. You guys have a great logo.
I got the link for the 10-minute game design challenge from Paper Fort Games as well.
Yeah.
We'll put that in the show notes. This is awesome.
Yeah. We've got a lot here that we've got to listen to some more episodes of your show. We've got to subscribe to your list, and we definitely have to get some time and play some Cosmoctopus, because that game looks really, really fun.
Thank you.
I'm excited about that one. I'm not really a Kickstarter guy, so I don't know if it's one that I will definitely back. But I don't know. I think I've backed 2 games in its entirety ever. But it's definitely one that when it comes to retail, I'll be picking up and showing around for sure.
Lovely. Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Well, enjoy and good luck with the Kickstarter. When this airs, it will be close to having either been on or starting on Kickstarter. So that'll be good.
Yeah.
We'll be wishing you all the best.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, both of you.
Thanks for listening to Board Game Chats with Chris and Myron. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast, check out their website at boardgamechats.com, or drop them an email at boardgamechats@gmail.com. You can also find Board Game Chats on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.